So, since starting graduate school, one of the questions that I got most frequently was, why did I stop working in IT and wanted to become a psychologist? Simple answer that I used to give and I still give today is, I went from analyzing computers to analyzing people, and that is very true. However, it's also a reason I needed to leave IT. And today I'm going to talk about like my first IT experience and working in the corporate space of IT. So let's start at the beginning. A very good place to start. Straight out of undergrad, I started working for like this startup company that offered like internet, telephone, and web and email services to like small businesses. I started out working in tech support. And in tech support, you deal with all types of issues. It's customer service. So you deal with different people, different issues. And after about a year working in tech support, I was like, this is not for me. Mainly because I spent an hour on an email issue. And it's not that it was an email issue, because we actually worked on email issues a lot because we had a DNS server. So we hosted companies' email addresses in their website. So we were used to dealing with that as a tech support issue. My issue was the person I was talking to was having an issue with their Yahoo email. We didn't host Yahoo emails, and even after me explaining multiple times in different ways that because your internet is working, our responsibility or our ability to help kind of stops there. So you may want to contact Yahoo tech support. But because of who I am and because I know I am tech savvy and computer savvy, I was like, no, I can help. It's Yahoo. It's not that hard. Apparently it was, because I was on the phone for an hour. So after that, I left tech support. I went from tech support to working in a network operating center. So working in the NOC. And in the NOC, I didn't have to deal with customers as much. I only had to deal with customers if their services were completely down. Other than that, I was dealing with engineers, local access carrier technicians, people that were out on site, calling out tickets. That's what I did. And I love this team. And the work was easy. And the money was nice. However, I didn't actually enjoy the job. So it's like, I don't know if I could see myself doing this for an extended period of time. And there are people that have been doing that for a while and they enjoyed it. I did not. I love my team. The work was easy. So it made sense for the moment. But I saw this as a stepping stone to get to where I was wanting to get to. And in that point, I wanted to work for the business side. I didn't want to be in a network operating center because it's a 24/7 operation. And in any 24/7 operation, if you've ever worked in it, you know that someone has to be there 24/7. So that means you may work a weekend, you may work a holiday, you may work overnight, and I don't want to do either of those. I have done all of those. And because of my work-life balance, I don't want to do that anymore. So I wanted to go work for the business side. And also because my degree was in computer programming, so computer information systems. So I wanted to do more work like that and not the networking side. Networking side was more engineering, and it was fun, but not what I wanted to do. So a lot of people were saying like it's hard to get from the network side to the business side. And I interviewed before, and I kind of actually ended up in the same department, but on like a different team. The one I interviewed for, I didn't get the job, which is fine. Had an interview with the same person that I talked about in a previous video, and she gave me the opportunity to come to the business side. Awesome. She's amazing. I was hired as a business systems analyst. Actually, I was hired as a business analyst. And as a business analyst, you are the go-between for like the business people, the business suites, and the technical side, which I'm okay because I can talk to both of them. But coming from the NOC side, coming from tech support, we had a motto of keeping it simple, stupid. So however simplistic or simplified we can make things, we did. And on the business side, that's not always the case. They're sending emails, you're having to create these robust and large documents, and you're having to write these requirements documents that are very detailed and to the like very fine points. So I had to get to a different place. And let me be clear, I hate proofreading. And no matter how old I get, I hate proofreading. And graduate school almost killed me because of the amount of proofreading I had to do. Now, when I was in IT and I first started in corporate IT, I don't think I proofread as well as I probably should have, because I almost can guarantee you, if I go back and read some of those emails and documents I created back in the early 2000s, I would be ashamed. But I digress. So I was a business analyst. I stayed there for a while, and then the team that I'd interviewed before and didn't get the position needed a systems analyst. And the systems analyst, unlike the business analyst, operated as both the business and the business analyst. So I was actually the person responsible for the software, getting the software updates, because we had a vendor that actually had proprietorship over our software. So any changes that we made had to go through a third-party vendor. So I was the actual business that was using the actual software, and I was the one that actually had to write the requirements document saying what we needed to test it, and all these other things. Which I didn't mind, because one, I got to do coding, which was awesome, and it was actually really fun. And I did like that part, and it also had a database component to it that I liked a lot too. Now, side note, affirmative action moment. This is my affirmative action moment, and it'll come up towards the end as to why I'm bringing this up. I was on a team of 12 people, and that included 2 managers and 1 director. And I'm going to be clear, there was only 1 person on this entire team that had a degree in computer science. And this was an actual corporate IT billing team. So we dealt with software, coding, programming, all of those things primarily. Now I want you to tell me, how many people do you think on this team? Actually, no. I want you to tell me, who do you think on this team had a degree? And what the makeup of this team was. The racial makeup of this team. And if you guessed, I was the only Black person on this team who had a degree in computer science working in corporate IT, you would be correct. Ding, ding, ding. You are the winner. So that's my affirmative action side note. That's a part of how I probably got this position, because they needed someone on this team that was a person of color. So not fast forward. It was on this team, working for this particular manager and on this team, that I liked most of the people on the team, but it is a difficult team to kind of work with sometimes. My manager, who had a degree in economics, which kind of helps with billing, I guess, in some way. Not really sure when we're dealing with the technical side of, like, just getting the bills printed out. We're not actually dealing with the finances of it. We're just figuring out how to take these raw server records and create an actual bill that customers can use. Not really sure how e-com plays into that, but I digress. He was the type of manager who overshared every aspect of their lives, and actually wanted you to overshare, and felt offended if you didn't. So I knew more about this man than I needed to know. I knew how old his girlfriend was, their age gap, and how he, wanted to help her grow and learn, because that's what we want to do with our significant others. But that's a whole nother story. And also, I had a girl on the team who let me know that she had lied on her resume to get the job, and she needed my assistance with the technical part that she needed to work on. I didn't help, because I couldn't. My own internal integrity wouldn't allow me to help her do the job that she had lied to get. Just me personally. So I was on this team. I was at this company for almost 6 years. I was on this team for 3 of those 6 years. And a part of the job was working with the third-party vendor. And the third-party vendors, the primary people I would work with would be like the actual developers, software developers, and the software engineers on their team, because I'm writing the requirements documents for them. So we started working on, in our company, like $1 million project. And this project was so expensive because we were changing our entire network. And because we were changing our entire network, our servers would start getting new files. So I had to figure out how to get the data off of those files so I can send them to the downstream system, where the other half of my team would be able to use the data that I send them to create bills for customers. That was my job. Cool. So because this was such a large project, I called a meeting with the vendor to actually come in. Now, I'd never met my vendors in person. We talk a lot over the phone. We talk a lot over emails. We have a lot of meetings, like virtual meetings, but it wasn't like we had to be on camera. This was before everybody had like these Logitech cameras at their desk, and everybody would want to be seen on camera. But we did have camera options, and we did have that availability. But most of the time, you didn't have to show yourself. So I don't think I'd ever met this person in person. So I called a meeting with him and my coworker that was on the other team that was responsible for getting the files that my system created to use to create the printed documents for billing purposes. So I wanted both of them on the team. One, because the vendor needs to know what we need. And two, I need to make sure that whatever record that we're producing is something that David, who's on the other team, can actually use for his files moving forward. All right, so we're in this meeting, and it's me and David on one side, and it's the vendor sitting on the other side. And again, I want to just really highlight that I had a working relationship with this vendor. Like, we had talked multiple times. We had never met face to face, so sight unseen. And truth be told, there have been times when people see my name or hear my name and assume I'm a guy. So if it's like a bill collector and they're like, "Can I speak to Demetrius?" And it's like, "He's not here. Can I speak to Mr. Demetrius?" And I'm like, "Well, he's not here." Like, "Thank you. Let them know." Oh, cool. All right. So I have been mistaken for a guy before. And like I said, with bill collectors, that's cool. But this person I talked to over the phone, so I'm like, he couldn't have thought I was a dude, because unless it's early in the morning and I have my Barry White going, I don't sound like a guy. So I do sound like a woman when I talk. So we're in this meeting, and every time I tell him something that we need, technically, and I give him information, he looks to David to verify what I'm saying. Now, David, for his part, was honest and said, this is not my software. I don't know her system at all. She runs that system. I just get whatever file she creates from that system. She's the one that does all the technical work. I don't do programming. I think he was more database. He was like, "I don't do programming. I don't do coding." So, and he said that several times. So after about the third time of him saying, after about the third time of me saying something and him looking to David for verification, I took the time in that moment to say, I'm not really sure what's happening in this moment, because we've worked together quite often. We have a working relationship. I've talked to you about code. I've written requirements documents. I've talked to you about code that I've created in our test system. So I'm not really sure why every time I say something, you verify it with David. So I'm not sure if it's because I'm a woman or because I'm black. Either way, I'm done in this meeting, and this meeting is adjourned. And I got up and I walked out. At that point, I was done. I was so done. And I was so done, not because, it was because of the interaction that was going on. But it wasn't just, and caveat, these two, they were both white men. And in that moment, I was kind of tired to some extent of the industry because of that. My manager, who was also a white guy, would like screen my emails. And he wouldn't screen my emails because they weren't proofread or there was some grammar issue or some spelling issue. He would come to me and say, "Demetrius, why didn't you use this word instead of this word?" And his word would just be a larger word than the one I used. So it's like, "Ooh, awesome. You found a thesaurus. Cool beans. You know what a thesaurus is. Awesome." But I don't need to use big words to prove to anyone I'm educated. I do my work, and I do my work well. So I don't have to prove anything to anyone. And if you want to use big words for your email, do so. But stop talking to me about, why didn't I use this word instead of this word? Do they mean the same things? Yes, they're synonyms. And for my children out there, or my young people who don't know what a thesaurus is, it's one of these handy little dandy things right here. I keep one close. I like this one because it's cute. I rarely use it because you can Google synonyms and find them. But back in the day, a lot of people used to use those, and I think this manager had one sitting on his desk. they help you sound more sophisticated when you're trying to sound very eloquent in what you're saying when you can just simply say what you're trying to say. I still like to keep it simple because that's how my mind works. I don't need large words. I don't need unnecessary words. So he was already irritating me. There was some other stuff going on in this organization that was irritating me. So at that point, I was pretty much tired of most people. So this man blatantly disrespecting what I was saying in these sessions, knowing that we worked together, was just really upsetting to me, and I couldn't take it anymore, and I got up and walked out. And David actually ended up coming back and apologizing to me, and I let him know, like, you were clear. You said what you needed to say. You let him know that you weren't over it. You were just there because you received the file, but that was something he was wanting to do. I thank you for the apology, but he didn't need to apologize. It had absolutely nothing to do with him at all. It was not like something he was asking for at all. So it was either a little while after this or before this, we had our annual appraisals. And if you've ever worked in a corporate space or any job at this point, you know your appraisal is when you and your manager sit in a room and you either decide that you either agree or agree to disagree that you've done what you're supposed to do for this year for your job. And that's what we sat in for. And in this meeting with my manager, he comes and he tells me that on this particular appraisal, I have 2 areas where I'm unsatisfactory. And keep in mind, I've been working for this company for almost 6 years at this point. I had never had a bad review, a bad appraisal. I've always been satisfactory or exceptional in areas that I worked in. And even from him in prior years. So he told me I was unsatisfactory because there were days that I would have my school books on the desk, and there would be days where my school books would be open and I would be studying at my desk. Now, I want you to keep in mind, at this point, I had been in school part-time for 3 years. So I had been in school part-time for the entire time that I've been in this department. And I started going back to school because I started working in this department. I was like, I'm going to have to change my career path. And this is when I was trying to figure out if I wanted to be a psychiatrist or a psychologist. So needless to say, this wasn't the first year he's seen my books at my desk. And he knew that if I was on break or if my books were open and I was studying, it was because I was on lunch or on break. And we do get those when we're working. So this year, all of a sudden, that's an issue. Also, I was unsatisfactory on like team building or team not coercion, Freudian slip, team cohesion and collaboration, because he told me I was unsatisfactory in this area because I didn't share during our team meetings like things about myself and my personal business. So let me be real clear about something. When I'm at work, I'm at work. It's not a time for me to share my personal business, and I will share my personal business when I feel comfortable to do so, when I want to, and when I need to. It's not a requirement. It's not something I get paid for, and it's my personal business. So if I don't share it, I don't share it, and you're just going to have to accept that. That's not what I said. That's what I was thinking, and that's also how I operate today. My personal business does not have to be shared at work because it's my personal business, point blank, period, full stop, in a sentence. So that was one reason why I wasn't being a team player. Also, when he came in sometimes in the morning, I wouldn't speak. And I wouldn't speak. Not because I didn't speak, because I was raised in a Black household, and in the Black household, when you walked into a room, you spoke. So I normally, if I didn't speak to him, it's because I didn't see him. And this was because when my last year there, we had moved to new office space. And in this new office space, my back was to the door. So I couldn't see people when they came in unless they came directly in front of where my desk was. Or like had a corner and I looked out the side. And mostly I always kept headphones on. And I kept headphones on because I was dealing with code. And I was dealing with trying to write requirements documents, and that requires you to focus. Like, it's not a whole lot of time for chit chat when you're coding, because if you've ever coded before, you know you can put a comma or a period in the wrong spot, and it'll light up your entire code. And I don't got all day to try to look for that just because you want me to speak with you. Cool. If I saw him, if I made eye contact with him, I spoke. But other than that, he used the code words. I was making it a hostile work environment. because I didn't want to share my personal life with him, and because I didn't speak to him when I didn't see him come in the office. Cool. After this meeting, I went to HR. I went to HR because I did not agree with this appraisal. And actually, I keep calling it an appraisal, and I think it's an evaluation. Annual, it might be an appraisal, whatever word choice, it'll change. But I went to HR because I didn't agree with that assessment. So I went to HR because we had an open door policy, and I expressed my concerns. And I think it was like a couple of weeks later, maybe a month later, I had a meeting with him and my director. And the director was one of those he was one of those people that would wear like the tightest pants he could find, and he'll sit in front of like the meeting room with his legs open or throw his leg up on the table. I was like, you're gross, but whatever. So I'm in this meeting with these two, and they let me know that I'm going to be laid off, which was the second reason that I had to kind of get out of IT too, because if you've ever worked on the business side of corporate IT, you know that every year you're dealing with budgets. You know that sometimes when the budgets come up and they don't have the funds to cover everyone in the organization, they're going to be layoffs. And they merge teams to start laying people off. They give people other job responsibilities and get rid of people to cut the budget down. And they normally cut from the top. So they cut the people in the business department, and they cut like top managers. If there are multiple layers of management, they'll cut those. So I didn't want to deal with that anxiety every year of wondering if I was going to keep a job. And in that space, because it was a startup company, that was an every year thing. So that was one of the reasons. But they were letting me know that they were laying me off, and I had 2 weeks. And I had to deal with like rejection, because even though I was getting laid off, I wasn't fired, and I understood. And there was a lot of people getting laid off at that same time, because it was a couple of years out there like that 2007, 2008, like financial crisis. So it was after that, it's like a couple of years after that the companies were doing like a lot of layoffs. So this was something that we had to deal with. Like it was every year or every 6 months that they were talking about layoffs. So this was another reason I had to get out of IT. So yeah, I was still hurt by getting laid off. But they laid me off, and they laid me off by giving me 6 months severance. So that means I got paid at my regular pay for 6 months, and I still had medical coverage for 6 months. So I was like, okay, cool. It still hurts to be let go because it's rejection, but I'm gonna get paid for 6 months and be at the house for 6 months. Now, the kicker part of this is that this man had the nerve to say to me in this meeting that now you can focus on your school full time. Now, I haven't always been a psychologist, and I always have not taken the high road. So this was not a high road moment, because in my mind, I didn't say this out my mouth, but in my mind, I said, you dirty bastard. How am I going to focus on trying to get back into school or focus on school when I got to figure out how I'm going to eat after 6 months from today, if I don't find employment with everyone laying off and firing people every year to 6 months? That's like, cool. All right. Oh, actually, let me go back for a moment, because in our one-on-one appraisal meeting, we were talking about like him not having a good grasp on what I was doing day to day. Like he didn't know where we were as far as the $1 million project was. He didn't know how much we kept on task or on track. If he didn't get a report that came from our reporting department and kind of tracked our production as far as like what we needed to do monthly, he didn't actually have a good grasp on what we were actually doing as far as the projects that we're working on. And I did a lot of project work on that team. So in this appraisal, while he was worried about my schoolwork and me not sharing what my weekends looked like, this man had no clue what work I was doing, what work I had completed, where we were in actual projects that he was supposed to be over, because he was my manager. So he had no clarity about where we were in those projects, even as a manager over his own department. And I am on the side of, if I have a question, I will ask it. I will ask that question, even if it may come out rude, because you now have the ability to decide whether you want to answer or not. Simply because I ask a question does not mean you need to answer it. So in that moment, I asked him, I said, why does it seem like you never know what we're working on as a team? And this bothered me, because this same year, our CIO, our Chief Information Officer, was meeting with like individuals on his IT team, his entire IT team, which was a very large team. And he was meeting with individuals, and I met with this man, and this man knew where I was in the project. He knew how much I had got completed, where we were, what else needed to be done, what barriers were in my way to get parts of my project done. And he knew like what role or benefit my part of the project played in the overall success of the company. Now, this meeting with the CIO kind of gave me like that motivation to keep working on this team, working in IT, all of that, because that was a leader who knew how to be a leader. My manager wasn't a leader. He was I don't know what he was, but I'm sure he's in a management position even still to this day. So in this meeting, this is why I asked him that question, because I'm like, if my CIO, who has to manage hundreds of people, know where I'm at in a project, and my position was not a high level position at all, not even close. If he's able to know, why don't you know? And I directly report to you. This man said to me, and I kid you not, this man said to me, that's because I'm trying to get to the next level in my career. So I'm working on moving up in my career. My thought in that moment was, I think you should probably be able to do the job that you're getting paid for now before you try to move to the next one. Just my personal opinion, but hey, who am I? So that was that meeting. I had to bring it back to that for a moment. So I got laid off. I was there for 2 weeks. You know what you do. You know what you do when you're about to leave a job for 2 weeks. It's a bittersweet moment because you're leaving your team, but it's something that you've been wanting for a while because you wanted to get away from certain people. And I think it was the last week or the last day I was leaving, I noticed that there was a new hire, and they had hired a new Black woman. And I don't know if she was to replace me, but the new Black woman that they hired wasn't on our team. She was in our department, but she wasn't on our team. She was on the other team. So I thought that was very interesting. So that's how that affirmative action story comes back. So they got rid of one after they added another one. So just saying, I won't make the assumption that I was an affirmative action hire, but I'm just saying. So left at home, trying not to cry because I'm trying to figure out what my next steps are going to be. And I'm okay for about a good 2-3 weeks because I'm like, I still get a check and I don't have to go. I don't have to be anywhere. But you know that feeling you have like when you've been busy and you've been doing something for a really long time, when you're no longer doing it, you feel kind of lost for a moment. So I was at home doing that. And I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks later, this man, my manager, my old manager, had the audacity, the unmitigated gall to call my cell phone and to ask me. Actually, I didn't answer, so he left me a voicemail. He asked me if I could call him back because he had some questions pertaining to the project that I was working on before I left. I said, if you didn't get it while I was there, or them 2 weeks before I left, you won't. That's for darn sure. You won't. Why for calm do you think I'm about to call you for anything? Anything. So he ended up having my coworker call me. And I had a really good relationship with my coworker because we were still talking. I still talked to her. Like we were talking quite frequently, and this is how I kept up with what was going on. She called and she was like, yeah, he wanted me to give you a call. I know it's messed up, but I'm calling you. I was like, it's not your fault. You still work there, so you followed through with what you needed to follow through with. So I told her, you're fine. You followed through how you needed to follow through. I don't blame you. I know you did what you needed to do. But so let's be clear. I'm not giving him anything. I'm not giving him any information whatsoever. Point blank, period. Full stop again. End of sentence. Side note to that story is that I think I learned some months later that he kind of my old manager tried to participate on the project team for the project that I was working on, and they kicked him off of the project because he was asking a lot of nonsense questions. And this was because he never kept up with where we were in the project, and he never took that into consideration before he laid me off or in those 2 weeks before I left. So, needless to say, his leadership skills were not on par with being in any leadership space. Just saying, sometimes people are just there. Sometimes people are put in positions because they've been there long enough. And sometimes people are put in positions because that's what they're able and capable of doing. He had got put in that position because he had been there long enough. So it is what it is. So that was after that experience, actually before that experience, when I first started working, actually towards the middle of that experience, I figured out that I needed to get out of the corporate IT space, because I was like, dear Lord, baby Jesus, if I don't get out of this area of this, if I don't get out of this career path, I'm going to catch a case. So I'm going to trade in these cute dresses and these boots for a jumpsuit. So I was like, I don't want to go to jail. So I'm going to need to change my career. Haven't always been a psychologist, haven't always taken the high road. So we're going to have to figure out how we do this. So in that moment, it's like, I have a way I need to go. And that was the end of that. That was not my only experience in corporate IT though. So this is just part one. Stay tuned for part two of my second experience in the corporate space and why I kind of like felt like it was like at that point I was thrust into, yeah, you need to find something different because this is not going to work for you long term. So hopefully this has been entertaining. Hopefully you got some information. Like, share, subscribe, whatever you feel like doing. Put any questions or comments you have below, or even questions. Actually, put any questions or comments you have below. Hope you have a great rest of your day.